We're at a really important moment where the baby boomer generation of private business owners is retiring, and they will all be out of the workforce by 2030. And this is called the Silver Tsunami. It is the largest wealth transfer in history. And for these businesses, if the business owner doesn't have a child to take over or a ready buyer, many of these businesses could go under. They could close their doors. And this would have a huge impact on our state and nationally as these small businesses that are so important to the community transition. So back in 2014, when I first started Broughton Consulting, I went to the National Center for Employee Ownership Conference, and I heard that there was an effort to have more boots on the ground by starting state centers. There was already a state center in Ohio that's affiliated with Kent State. It's been there for many years. There's one in the Rocky Mountains. There's one in Vermont. There's one in California. And I thought the time is now to start one in North Carolina because that's where I live. I started going around the state and just making connections with all the employee-owned businesses and all the players in employee ownership. So I met people from many of the ESOPs and many of the cooperatives. I made contact with Molly Hemstreet from the Industrial Commons. I made contact with Latasha Bestgaddy from the Shared Equity and Economic Development Program with the City of Durham, which happens to be where I live. I made contact with Patrick McHugh from the Budget and Tax Center, who had really gotten the employee ownership bug in 2016 and had published a report called Down Home Legacies and started really beating the employee ownership drum. I made contact with Thomas Beckett and Tia Evans from Carolina Common Enterprise, which is a cooperative developer in our state. And all of us began to give presentations around the state about employee ownership. And in late 2018, I was approached by the Employee Ownership Expansion Network offering us a small grant to actually found a formal employee ownership center in our state. So at that time, I took a deep breath and recruited board members and started the process to launch the center. So that was 2019. We were really mobilizing to start our center. The City of Durham was a big supporter because of their Shared Equity and Economic Development Program. And so we were able to work with them very early on with legacy Black-owned businesses in Durham. The Democracy at Work Institute was also an early supporter, and they helped us with a list of names to reach out to minority and women-owned businesses around the state to approach them about employee ownership. And then the Employee Ownership Expansion Network was also an early funder. The Duke Community Enterprise Clinic, which is headed up by Andrew Foster, who's now on the board of the North Carolina Employee Ownership Center, was very supportive in helping us get together our 501c3 application and our original bylaws and all the documentation we needed to form the center. So we're very grateful to the Community Enterprise Clinic at Duke for helping us get started. So when we were starting the center, we did talk to a lot of community partners, and ultimately the Self-Help Credit Union served as our initial fiscal sponsor until we could get our 501c3 designation. So we're very appreciative to Self-Help for working with us. Very early on, I did serve as the interim executive director until we were able to grow the center to a point where we could hire our first executive director, and that was at the end of 2020. And so I was able to help implement a lot of our programs, of course, work with our very engaged board members and really get this thing up off the ground. And from the beginning, I had the vision to create robust systems so that we could really grow and have something that we could work with. The North Carolina Employee Ownership Center has been collecting stories of employee-owned businesses, both from the perspective of the selling shareholder and also from the perspective of the worker-owner. We've been creating videos and we've been holding events around the state where businesses that have converted to employee ownership can tell their story. We've held events in many communities across the state. We have presented to a diverse array of stakeholders, from state legislators to local government officials to economic developers to business owners to lawyers and bankers and business assistants. We know that it takes a long time for a business to actually convert to employee ownership. So by getting the word out, a lot more people know that it's an option. And then we do work directly with businesses. We've got a list of businesses we've worked with over time. We've connected them with various businesses that can help them convert. The other role that the center plays is that we connect employee-owned businesses with each other so that they're not operating alone. They're part of an ecosystem of businesses running a different way. We connect businesses with service providers that can help them with legal and accounting and governance and all the questions that they have. And then we do a celebration every year in October of newly formed employee ownership companies and just all kinds of employee-owned businesses throughout the state, and bring them together, help them learn about each other, help them network and connect and build something bigger together.